Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley. I'm Pastor Gervais Charmley, and this is another church in Rutland. This is the Church of St. Peter and St. Paul in Langham. Now, you may have heard the name Langham before. Maybe you've heard All Souls Langham Place in London. But the reason why Langham is so significant is because here in the early part of the 14th century was born a young man, born a lad called Simon Langham, and he became Archbishop of Canterbury. And like so many people, becomes a monk at Westminster Abbey and eventually rises to be Archbishop of Canterbury. And like so many archbishops of Canterbury, so many medieval men who come from relatively ordinary backgrounds and become very, very important, he decides he's going to use his position to enrich his church, his village where he was born. And so he arranges to do massive restoration work, rebuilding extension to the church here. And that's why we've got this fantastic building from the 14th century, mostly, here in Langham. And you can see behind me, you've got these little, there we are, these windows above the chancel arch, which is, again, a very high status thing because it says we have fashionable low roof on the chancel, so we can have these windows. And what they would do, because they'd light the rood loft, which was used for various things. So let's have a look around and see what Langham left his church, shall we? As usual, then we start at the West End. Now, one of the great things about Langham is that because you've got all these plain glass windows in the nave, it's a very light space. It would originally have been not quite so light, they would have been stained glass in the windows. But you get this wonderful light effect. It's not quite as wonderful as some of the really big Fenland churches in Lincolnshire and Norfolk and Cambridgeshire, where effectively there's huge spaces with lots of old, very old pews, some of them even medieval. Here there's been more restoration, but still you get this wonderful effect of this big building that is very, very well lit. The font is here. This is 14th century, I suspect, maybe 13th. It has a repair here. This is where it would have had one of the locks, which I said before that the locks exist because people do sometimes these rather, well, shall we say, superstitious things with the holy water, the water kept inside. And the water was changed, I think, about once a month, which is great if you were bringing your child to be baptized at the beginning of the month, not so great at the end of the month, and there have been a lot of births that month. And yes, medieval people were not dirty. There's this but so it comes from Hollywood being silly, this idea that the Middle Ages were, everyone was dirty. No, people were as clean as they could be. Wonderful decorated work there in the transept. There's only one transept, and basically there's great big, that is Langham's memorial chantry chapel, where masses were said for the repose of his soul. I don't think he's one of our more badly behaved Archbishops of Canterbury, but nevertheless he was a medieval monk, and therefore this idea that his soul, he'd probably go to purgatory before anything else. Baby grand piano and the organ behind. We've got a nice one of these low wooden pierced screens, and the pulpit is this very interesting box type Victorian one. You see these, and these are very much following early medieval examples. The idea being that you want something that doesn't look perhaps so much like the old octagonal or hexagonal pulpits that would have been in these churches before the Victorians got their mitts on them. You can see there the bricked up entrance that led into the rood stair, which does rather look like it's been used as there's got a chimney behind it now. And here we have a memorial to the officers and men of the 1st Airborne Division who joined in worship with the parishioners in this church. From here they went to Arnhem, where between the 17th and 25th September 1944, many of them laid down their lives. In God was their strength. and that of course is the bridge too far. They attempt the massive, biggest airborne operation in history, and it mostly works, but it's a bit too ambitious, and sadly many of the airmen lose their lives and many are captured. And the bit that fails, of course, is particularly tragic because it did fail. Memorial here to Major General Lord Ranksborough, CB, CVO, late Commander, Royal Horse Guards, Lord Lieutenant of Rutland, born 1852, died 1921, served in Egyptian campaigns and commanded the 3rd Cavalry Brigade in the Boer War, 1900, equerry to Queen Victoria and Queen Alexandra, and Lord-in-Waiting to King George. He gave faithful service to God, King and country, and was greatly beloved by all, erected by his widow. The east window, although the tracery is medieval, the glass itself is Victorian, but it's imitating 14th century styles. No sedilia, but we do have a piscina. You can see there the bowls sticking out. Quite often where you have these bowls sticking out, they would be hacked off post-Reformation because you don't actually need the piscina. And they might want to panel the whole thing, and so it's good to find the bowls sticking out like that. And there we look west, down this great big church. And here we have the Langham aisle, or the transept. You can see it's actually, you've got this little bit between the porch and the transept. That door leads to some stairs that used to lead to a room above the porch, but the room doesn't have a floor anymore, so it just leads to a shelf of air. Another one of these big windows with Victorian glass, well, early 20th century glass here, because it's in memory of Sir Henry Clark, Jervois Baronet, who died 2nd of March 1908. And we've got St George, St Hadrian, St Oswald, St Alban, I suspect. Not always obvious who is mentioned here, but and at the bottom you've got St Michael, and then you've got St Martin, the Roman cavalryman who gave half his cloak to a beggar because he didn't have anything else to give the beggar. So this is Simon Langham's memorial chantry here. And now you've got the seating in here, and as we pan around here, there's that pulpit and niche here with a painting now of Madonna and Child. Originally, of course, we'd have statuary in, and there would have been everything you need for a nice chantry chapel. We've got one of those nice incised slabs here. This is a memorial to John Clark and Joan and Annis, his wives, 1532. So this is 16th century, and again very much of the period. But yes, it's about 1315. Simon Langham was born in the manor, and about 1539 he becomes a Benedictine monk, and then eventually ends up as Chancellor of England and Archbishop of Canterbury. And therefore they're in a position to give a lot of money to the church here, which is of course a very good thing for them. And it does now mean that there is this issue. We have this whacking great church, we're not quite sure what to do with it half the time, but it's better. It's a really impressive building, and Rutland has quite a number of them, so it's well worth visiting. The videos all the way on from yes, so this is one of those of the later. So all the videos are done in Leicestershire and Rutland thus far. They're very close to each other. You can visit them all within a couple of hours, which is what I've done. So here we are inside. That's the inside here at Langham. Let's have a look at the outside, shall we? And so here we are outside at Langham, St Peter and St Paul. You can see here behind me there's tower, and from the look, it's 13th century, oldest part of the building, and would have been here when Simon Langham was born. He would have known it as a boy. And you can see then behind me here, on this side, my bad arm there, there is the transept. So we'll have a look around the outside and again point out the various salient features. So here we are, and you can see here how the porch and the transept have that little chapel sort of inside in between them. What that does, it gives a very massive feel here, because you've got the aisle, then you've got all this outside, and so it's big, extremely big. And over here we have the War Memorial. The spire is what's called a brooch spire, and what makes it a brooch spire is those triangular bits on the corners that allow an octagonal spire to rise from a square tower. It's a bit fiddly, it's a bit heavy, and they later on go to the style that we saw at Wymondham, where you just have a parapet and an octagonal spire rising behind it. Much simpler, much easier to do, and it doesn't look quite so whacking great enormous, but all that wonderful limestone there. Now, some of the best building limestone was from Barnack in Northamptonshire, Barnack stone. You can imagine the building there, the church building there is fantastic, and it's a wonderful facing stone. You can see the chancel, again, this business, nave and chancel responsibility to different people, and the chancel is mostly ironstone with some bands and reinforcement of the limestone. So ironstone, cheaper, much more local, but if you're Simon de Langham, then you don't want the cheap stuff, you want the really posh stuff, because you are the Chancellor of England, you are the Archbishop of Canterbury, and your fellow, the people of your home village are not going to be very happy if you just give them something cheap. But also, of course, it would impact his piety. You can see here as we approach, you've got that ballflower cornice, and then the window of the bit in between the porch and the transept, that is adorned with ballflower, slightly crooked in places. These things very often they had to settle a bit after they were built. Look at that ballflower. And in the porch, you usually go in the porch here, you can see this, the doorway here, the niche there, that's the stoop where people would get holy water to remind themselves of their baptism. And then above there would have been a room, and you can see there, that's the door, which of course now blocked off because there is no room, just a shelf of air. But there would have been a room. So we have a look around the outside now. Just a close-up on that ballflower. There we are. Ballflower. Very, very typically 14th century. And then we've got these graves. Mowing in between them is a bit of a nuisance. Also, of course, not mowing increases biodiversity. So by not mowing, you're actually helping the environment, as well as helping your bills for whatever fuels your mower. There you can see you've got your low side window effect beneath there, and up here we've got, there's that east end of the nave, and more ballflower and carving, ballflower cornice up here. The ballflower is, it's the 14th century decorative device. We don't know who invented it, we don't know where it comes from, we just know that 14th century people love their ballflower. 14th century builders, they love their ballflower. And so ballflower everywhere. And here you can see again how they've used the stripes at the east end, the different kinds of stone, to make this very pretty striped effect. And the spire rising above with the dramatic clouds behind. This is classic Rutland here, really. Absolutely classic Rutland. You can see how the... Let's adjust that a bit. So you can see how the transept sticks out on the one side, and you've got then just the aisle on the other. And you see there those whacking great gargoyles, doing what gargoyles do, which is spit out water. I said before that that is the actual definition of a gargoyle. It's a decorative water spout. If it's not a decorative water spout, it's a grotesque. It may be very grotesque, but it's not a gargoyle. And behind a great big load of ivy, and we come out here, and there's that beautiful striped east end. It wasn't the Victorians who discovered structural polychromy. So here we have the north side, the somewhat plainer side, but then again, that's in comparison. And there's the, as we pointed out, there's the rood stairs, little stair turret, and you can see that shiny thing. That's where the boiler is. Boiler house, semi-buried. And on this side again, we've got the limestone facing. You can see above the gargoyles and wallflower cornice. So very much 14th century. Let's show off what we can do. So we've got non-wallflower there as well. Medieval churches, very often they were the most impressive building in the village, in the community, and that for various reasons. Part of it was about expressing your piety. Part of it, yes, was one-upmanship with the next door village. If the next door village built a new church, you might say, well, we need to build a new one. And then you've got people like Simon Langham, who are, well, I am a very, very successful man, I have loads and loads of money, and which is, of course, funny if you're a monk, because you're not supposed to have loads and loads of money if you're a monk, because you're supposed to be poor, because monks take a vow of poverty. So some of it then is sort of guilt. Well, I have lots of money I probably shouldn't have, so I'll use some of it to build a church, and hopefully that will count towards something in terms of forgiveness, because again, part of what you have with medieval piety, there is this almost, not quite, but almost transactional nature to it. So there we have it. St. Peter and St. Paul, Langham. So Langham, village that gave us an Archbishop and a Chancellor of England, who in turn gave the village the church, at least in its present form. I hope you've enjoyed this. I've certainly enjoyed coming out here on this beautiful summer's day. We haven't had a lot of them this year, so it's great to come out on one, and we do have one, and look at these lovely medieval historic churches. Well, thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you until next time.